There's something for every imagination at your local comic shop. Visit comicshoplocator.com to find a store near you.
Now you can hear me. What's up, everybody? How's it going? Welcome into Shop Talk. This is our long-form interview show. It comes to you 3 or 4 times a week with long-form interviews from creators brought to you by our great team. Today's interview is one of the strangest, most fun interviews we've ever had. We had a special guest interviewer sit down with the legend Dan Jurgens, the man who killed Superman, the man who did so many other things in the comic book industry. But you'll find out about all of those. I just want to give a quick shout out to our guest interviewer and to Mr. Jurgens as well. Remember, guys, tune in later tonight at 6 o'clock for our live shows. So we have live sales shows tonight from Jen King and Jesse James. Jen King has her Mishmash show. Jesse James has a 6-shooter Jesse James show. Those are coming up later tonight. But now, let's have the Dan Jurgens. Let's talk. We have another legend coming up right now, a man whose work has shocked the comic industry at least once, more than that probably. But before, I don't want to talk too much about it. I'm going to bring him in right away. Guys, Dan Jurgens is here, but we have a special guest interviewer. And I wanted Dan's face to be on screen when he sees who.
It's me, Booster Gold.
All right, here we go. This ought to be good. Good
times. Good times. It's the Gold Father himself.
Yeah.
So
that? That's awesome.
The second I heard that you were going to be on here, I was like, yes, I need to interview Dan Jurgens as my favorite character and his favorite. Obviously, I mean, do you have one of these shirts?
I do, believe it or not. Yes.
Good stuff. So let's get into it. First, I want to talk some about Booster, obviously, and all that. And then by the end, talk about the Generations book that just came out and what you have planned for the future. But let's get into the Booster stuff. Thank you so much for doing this. This was what I deserve as a character. This was before we had this one that, cool cover and all, right? But black and white, this, you, sir, put so much into this, so much extras in here, so many tidbits that's like basically you're interviewing yourself. You started here and you said, like, I get asked these 2 main questions about Booster Gold. Why did you come up with such a weird, flawed character? And why did you name him such a weird name? And you just nailed it. You nailed it. I mean, this character and how you summed up this intro, not only was he a character for his time, for, coming out of the 1985 Olympic, 1984, when you were creating him, right. He's a character for our time. This guy, Booster is like, you mentioned social media. What would Booster be doing with this stuff? What would Booster be doing with just digital marketing? I mean, he was a promoter. He was a booster of things with digital marketing. Man, this guy would be crazy. So let me get into Booster. Okay, so when you created him, you intentionally wanted to create a. Did you intentionally? Oh yes, Booster finally the dad, Gold Father, Dad Jurgens. Right. All right. So to me, Booster is to science what John Constantine is to magic. You get down deep, he has a heart of gold, but on the surface, he makes terrible decisions. Terrible decisions. That's to dig himself out of it.
What I have always said is that if there is a plane that's coming down, for example, it's going to crash in a city and Booster flies up to save it, that it's going to be a lot of work for him to do it, that he's going to make mistakes along the way. He'll first call the press to make sure that they're there to videotape and record his act of heroism. And, you know, a couple of the wings might brush a couple of office buildings on the way down, and we might have some accidents because of that. But at the end of the day, he still does the right thing, and he does save the day. And I think the thing about Booster is, if you go back to like 1985 when I created him, you know, every character in the DC universe was sort of perfect at that time. And what we did is create a character that had faults. And I think ultimately is very human and much easier for readers to relate to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Booster, I mean, just this is what I want. Of course, your claim to fame, the big deal, the thing is, you know, Death of Superman. Death of Superman and your decades of Superman. You know, your 80 years of Superman, how many of those were you? You know, you're at the Library of Congress, all that stuff. But Booster, I mean, there's so much potential in this character. There's so much that that can be done with animation, movies, video games. I mean, this character is so perfect for this time, like kind of like a Deadpool-esque, but more relatable. What do you think it is that has stopped Booster from becoming a household name since the 80s? I mean, he was in Smallville. He was in lots of cartoons, you know.
Right.
He basically headlined several episodes of Just League Action, which were wonderful, wonderful episodes.
Right.
I don't know if you were involved in those, but those were amazing.
You know, and he had been optioned as a TV series, and they went so far as, you know, writing the script and everything, and it just didn't go anywhere beyond that. He also then got optioned for a movie where a script was written, and it didn't go anywhere beyond that. And I can't answer for why others make the decisions that they do. I know that I have tremendous faith in the character, and I think right now, you know, with the there's a tremendous void in DC movies, and what they have is a list of characters that they're using. And I think, frankly, they've left an incredible amount of IP on the floor that they just haven't picked up and used. And it's a shame because it's money, man. I mean, they've left a lot of money on the floor, whether it's Booster or any other character. So hopefully one day it'll still happen. We'll see.
Absolutely. And hopefully with you involved, you know?
Well, I think, yeah. And I think the other reality is, and what I keep saying is, I think right now, and this is a bit of what you've touched on, is with celebrity culture being what it is, with the media attention to these things being what it is, with social media being what it is. I mean, how many social media accounts would Booster Gold have? I mean, how much money would he be raising on, whether it was GoFundMe or whatever else, you know, to fund his exploits? I think it would be a lot of fun, but would also be something that would add a lot of social commentary to the reality of the world we're in right now. So it would be fun to see.
Absolutely. And I love how you work Booster into pretty much every DC thing you write. You know, like, I know you take over Action. How long till we get a Booster Gold guest star? You know,
for a while, you know, yeah. Almost 50 issues.
Well, with Batman Beyond, speaking of that, wow. I mean, that was such a great guest starring with Terry McGinnis and Booster Gold together. Those two issues, I mean, it was just, I was reading those lines out loud to people like, listen to this. This is nailed, Booster Gold. This is perfect. This is a buddy, just a buddy romp with Booster and Batman Beyond as a direct to digital or DVD animated would be hilarious. I mean, those two characters had some chemistry. I mean, they really did. And you brought that out. I just wanted to commend you on that for sure.
Well, thanks. Well, and the other part of it is that if you look at, as I was writing Batman Beyond, the age that Terry McGinnis was at that point, as well as the age that Booster Gold is, I mean, they're very much about the same age. And, you know, Booster, when he first came here, was someone who had essentially dropped out of college. So you could figure he was like 22, 23. As I was writing Terry McGinnis, he's kind of around that age himself, maybe a bit younger. So, you know, in terms of age, they could be contemporaries, even though they're from very different times, and that's part of what makes it fun.
And did you have this story in the back of your mind the whole time when you took over Batman Beyond so long ago, that you had this great Booster Gold story to tell with them?
Yeah, I think that when I first started on Batman Beyond, I always knew that one day there would be a Batman Beyond Booster Gold story. We talked about a couple of different ideas, and then as we got to the point where the book was canceled, I wanted to make sure we could still fit that in, because again, I think it's important not to shoehorn concepts like that into a book, but a time traveler and a book that exists in the future, I mean, it's a natural fit. I think any writer might have gotten to that point eventually. So like I said, there again, it took almost 50 issues, but we did it.
Cool. Yeah, it was awesome. Going back towards, okay, so you did Booster's original run, and you did the Death of Superman, which was, your Justice League was heavily involved in that. Finally got those collected well,
Right.
That's good stuff. Really, really enjoyed this. You created Doomsday, obviously, and Cyborg Superman, basically that's credited to you too, Hank Henshaw, Cyborg
Right.
Superman. I
Yep.
mean, two like A-list Superman villains. I mean, that's something to be proud of,
It is. Because really, creating villains and getting them to that level, that's tough. It is not easy to do. And everybody sets out, whenever you're writing a book, to create really good villains and to hope that you can create something that gets to the A-list, but it very rarely does. So if you can pull that off, then that's great.
And of course, I was reading Justice League back in the day, and I was excited about you taking over. I love Giffen, DeMatteis, that stuff, Beetle Booster. That's my bread and butter. Obviously, you kept them together. You knew not to split them up. But why was your run so relatively short on this? I wanted more. You went to Marvel?
Well, a lot of it was just this. At that time, I was also writing and drawing Superman. And it is really an incredible amount of work to write and draw 2 books a month. And
that's insane, really.
Yeah, it takes a lot. It takes a lot out of you. And I don't see anybody doing it today. I'm not sure anybody has done it since. Prior to me, I know I'd seen John Byrne was capable of writing and drawing 2 books a month, but it's very difficult to do. And I think what happened is I actually stepped off Justice League and then went and wrote and drew Zero Hour. So it was sort of a natural segue at that point, and that too was a lot of work, but at least that wasn't on that monthly schedule. But to write and draw, 2 books a month, and one of them being a group book like that is difficult. It was nice to do it while I did it, because it worked out very, very well in terms of being able to integrate Justice League into the Death of Superman story, which I think that's part of what makes comics fun, right? Is that if you're going to do something like the Death of Superman, that Justice League becomes a part of it, and you have this idea of a cohesive comic universe, and that just gets everybody excited. So I thought that worked out quite well.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been reading all of the Future State books, a little ahead on those, reading advanced PDFs. But one thing I liked about some of those Future State books is the backup stories. Mm-hmm. And some of them, the backup stories were 20 pages. They're meaty backup stories. 20 pages, 12 pages, whatnot. But it made me feel like it was more of a cohesive universe, in that you buy the Batman book or you buy the Superman book and you get these other stories of what's going on in their world, in their city, in their plot lines, and you just get it. Like, of course it matters. Of course it counts. Of course the writer expects you to know this canon, because it's just together. And it made me kind of see backup stories in a whole different light. Like, anthologies don't work. Sure, anthologies don't work, whatever. I don't want to argue that. But what if the anthology was other stories of the main story and of the expanded universe and what we love so much about comic books in general? And that really, really came off with some of these Future State books. It really did well.
Well, in a way, it's what comics were in the beginning, where, it was 64 pages of fun and color for a dime. And,
right.
and so there, I think, has always been this idea that comics don't necessarily have to be a single book that has 20 pages of story and art. And I think as we kind of flex out of that paradigm a little bit and can expand this concept of what a comic might be, and maybe, yes, it's something that's bigger, that has more story in it for a higher price, but you get more as a reader, I think that can be a very legitimate way to go.
Yeah, yeah. And speaking of that, wasn't going to get into this just yet, but the Generation Shattered. Wow, yeah. What a thick, like no ads, bound $10. But I mean, was this actually going to be like a miniseries before it was like this?
Well, originally, you know, it's a project, like often happens in comics, that went through a lot of different stages before we finally got to press. Yes, this one is $10, but it's 80 pages of story and art. And when you start to factor that out, you know, that's like 4 comics. And if you're buying 4 comics, that's going to cost you $16 or $20, right? So it's actually a really good value. And I think it's a good package. But yeah, it originally started out as something that was designed to be something different. And we continually adjusted the story and the concepts and everything that went into it in order to work in with what we now have as a DC universe. And
this book, I don't know how much of it you wrote. There's 3 writers credited, Andy Smith and Vendetti, Robert. Mm-hmm. But yeah, man, the booster stuff in here was great. I mean,
yeah. And there again, what it is, it's an idea that takes characters from multiple different timelines in the DC universe. So we have Batman from 1939 as he very first appeared. We have other characters from the mid 80s as they first appeared. We have the Eradicator character as he first appeared in Superman in the early 90s. So we represent different stages of DC history and different aspects of DC history as we bring these characters together and forge what I think is a kind of a really fun superhero team.
Yeah, definitely. And I just liked how it's realizing that that claim at the end of Death Metal, and that everything matters, everything happened, everything matters, it all counts. And you're like, yeah, it does. And we're putting together a team pieced together from pieces of this everything, pieces of this unknotted timeline, and just boom, off to the races. I had a specific question for you.
Yes.
This Wave Rider in here, is that the Wave Rider from Convergence Booster Gold 2?
No, this would be a more, think of him as historically accurate Wave Rider, if you will, essentially the original version. Yes. So, and he's part of it. And that's the one I think that most people recognize and are more comfortable with. So that's the one we decided to use.
Okay. Yeah, I was just wondering why he was kind of going for booster save, if since Booster is so interested in self-preservation, self-promotion. I was like, I wonder if that is the Wave Rider that he put in the Convergence 2 that actually has Booster's memories.
Well, and of course, all of this gets continued and completed next month in a book called Generations Forged, which tells, it's another 80-page book, $10, but it tells the story, once again, of what happens with all these characters and concludes it. So from my standpoint, it's a very satisfying way to work in that you get to tell what is a rather epic story with a huge page count. I mean, it's 160 pages in all, but it only takes 2 books to do it. And readers get into it and out of it again in a hurry. And whereas typically that is something that, had it been a 20-page comic, would have taken a number of months to come out, right? It would have been an 8-month project. And this way you get it in 2 months. And I think we'll find out. I'll be very interested to see how people react to it. But it allows us to use some great talent. I mean, the art in Generation Shattered, I think, just had a tremendous list of artists. And was, I think, a really fun comic book.
Oh yeah. It felt like a lot of the time travel stuff that you have done, except it was fresh, and I like that. It felt like I don't know if I'm reading into it, but it felt like you didn't have an editor telling you what to and not to do all over the place. It felt like you kind of
we all, there's always going to be an editor on the book, and No, what we had is a couple of really good editors on this, and Brian Cunningham and Andrea Shea, and who were very involved in the book. And what it is, I think, more is a situation where you had writers, artists, and editors all on the same page, working toward a common goal and having that common vision of what this project could be.
Yeah, it's like, I guess what I'm talking about is sometimes there's a team book or a title, and it's like, oh, you can't use this version of the character. You have to use this version of the character now because this is what this character is now. And this is like, no, we're going to use the Dr. Light that doesn't speak English yet, and we're going to use whatever character we want in whatever version that tells the best story. That tells.
Right. And actually, and I'm glad you picked up on that. We wanted readers to pick up on that because we did spend a lot of time going through concepts of who would be on this team, who would be the various characters on this team to represent different eras of DC. And if once you get there, how does Commandy then fit in with a Dr. Light? How does a Steel fit in with the Eradicator or Superboy, who's part of the Legion in the future? And so if we take all these really divergent, I think, characters who come from very different times in DC, where Superboy is, say, from the 50s, and like I said, Batman from the 30s, and you start to put them together as a team, it becomes pretty unique. And it took us months to finally arrive at that final team. We had so many characters that were part of it, then thrown away. They came, they went, and that kind of thing. It was quite an exercise.
I really like the final content. And you said that Generation Forged is next month.
Generations Forged comes out in February, and it completes the story. Again, it's another 80-page book, $10, with a lot of great artists in it. So once it's all done and said with, I think it comes together very, very well, and more importantly, sets us up for, I think, a lot of potential material going forward, because we certainly end with something of a beginning.
Sounds good. A lot of people have been talking. I've heard this on social media groups I'm part of, and some groups I admin and whatnot. Obviously, pro Booster Gold groups, but why are they teasing so much Booster and Beetle? In fact, Ted Kord Beetle, but we don't know where they're going to appear in this this new Infinite Frontier universe that's coming up. There's so many books have been announced, and it feels like those characters are getting a push. Beetle and Booster together specifically, but no book. They're getting some attention. They're getting some push. Like these covers I had to get for myself. They're just beautiful, beautiful covers that go together. And
which by the way, as a small scoop, were originally going to be part of the Generations.
Yes.
Kind of
here's what I see. Okay, so it's a Triptych 3 connecting cover, but this one, there's obviously nothing coming from before. This is the first. This is obviously the JSA. However, here you have a cape here that is not any of these characters, but this cape looks red and black. Maybe Batwoman. Maybe the next generation included Batwoman as a prominent character. That looks like Batwoman's cape to me. I don't know if you can confirm that, obviously, but that's what it looks like. Where this Beetle and Booster, it's just a beautiful picture of them. Just their camaraderie, their friendship. And then they're both together on the cover of the Infinite Frontier #1. And when they showed that to comic book retailers, the first question, maybe it wasn't the first question, but one of the first questions was, where are Beetle and Booster going to appear? Why are they prominently shown in this cover that only has a handful of characters for all these titles? They have to appear somewhere. Or why are they on this cover? Why? And I can't get an answer. I know that they would be perfect for a backup in plenty of titles. I mean, obviously a Justice League title, they'd be perfect for a backup in that. But I don't know. Do you know if there's any plans, or is it in flux, or for the two of them?
I think it's, let's put it this way. They're on the cover of Infinite Frontiers And I think that just because of all those characters on the cover, it doesn't mean any announcements or any plans for them necessarily all happen in month one. I think what you're seeing is DC setting up things for the future that don't all necessarily come out that month, which I believe is March. So it's my sneaky way of saying stay tuned.
Right. Yeah. That actually was relevant to you. One of the questions that came up when they were announcing the March books is like, where's Dan Jurgens' book? Is Dan Jurgens not going to be doing anything? Where's Dan Jurgens' book? And I actually told people on the board that I admin, like, just wait. This is just the first month. This is just the first month. I know there's going to be a JSA book. There has to be a JSA book. You know, this is just the first month. You know, Beetle and Booster are probably going to be doing something. So we'll see. We'll see. So I'm definitely excited for the future, for the possibilities with Booster. I know that he has a great friend in Jeff Johns, who does have a production company that, you know, could produce things for TV, perhaps, you know, he's doing well with Stargirl. So he has friends in different places that could pan out. But I wanted to promote, this is sponsored by Flight, Yingling Flight Booster. I get paid for my, you know, affiliate marketing stuff. So
only way to do it. Guys got to eat. Not everybody can be born rich like Bruce Wayne, right? That's
my point. Okay, so Bruce Wayne, his alternate identity, secret identity, whatever, it's irrelevant. He doesn't have a job. He begrudgingly shows up at debutante balls or whatever. You know, who cares? He has no job. Why does Booster get so much crap for trying to make a buck, trying to have a job? His job was, he was a personal brand, obviously. You touched on that in your intro. He was building a personal brand. Nowadays, he would be a social media influencer, like you said. I personally think he would be a digital marketer. He would own the internet. So, so having said all that, why in the world can't this guy catch a break in 2021 now? Come on.
Well, and look at Superman. I mean, so Superman needs a story, and he sits down at a typewriter that he bangs it out or a keyboard, and he bangs it out at super speed, where Clark Kent interviews Superman and has a scoop. I mean, that's cheating, right?
Right.
So
yes, that was my overall point.
Get judgmental.
Superman has these amazing powers, yet everyone cuts him a break. Even, you know, now they know he's Clark Kent, that he deserves to have a regular life. He deserves to have a job, a career. He deserves to have something like that. Okay, sure, whatever. Why doesn't Booster deserve to get paid for saving people? Why not? Like, self-promotion is a real job. I mean, that is a real job. Like, people get 1099s, independent contractors. They promote Monster Energy drink or whatever. It's a real job. And I just think that the time is right for Booster to come into his own. And I personally think what would be amazing is if, even if it's just a comic book, to have meta marketing where Booster is promoting things, affiliate things, in real life on the internet, not real, but, you know, and it ties into the book that he's promoting things in the book.
Yeah, any Booster Gold comic, every ad that's inside it really should have Booster Gold pitching whatever product it is, right?
Absolutely.
So even if it's DC house ads for other books, it could be Booster Gold holding up, you know, Batman for that month and Superman for that month, saying, you know, buy these comics or I'll shoot this dog, you know, whatever it's going to be. Yeah.
Yeah, or I won't shoot this cat. So, yeah. And Constantine did that for Vertigo. I definitely remember Constantine promoting all the new Vertigo books, giving his unreliable narrator type of thing, which Booster could be similar, unreliable narrator, promoting it, but not necessarily promoting it in the way that maybe the powers that be want it promoted. He's promoting it in the way that he thinks is awesome. And if you like Booster Gold, maybe you'll take his advice. He's an influencer. So having said that, I had a weird argument with someone recently, a discussion. So I mentioned about you, and we were talking about your illustrious career at DC. And I said, but he also did some great stuff at Marvel. And they're like, what did he do at Marvel? I'm like, bro, he had like a 6-year run on Thor. Like, what are you talking about? You know, like, come on. And then I was like, I remember you on Captain America too. And then I remembered the Spider-Man.
Right.
And I remember younger, wanting, okay, the Superman guy's doing Spider-Man. I want to read this Spider-Man. And I was, I only had so much money. And I was a DC, I was DC other than if a creator I loved was doing a Marvel one. Other than that, I was DC because I could only afford one universe entirely. There's only so many lawns I could mow. But but I was excited for you doing Spider-Man after Superman and all that. And it's not even Peter Parker. Like, what's going on? And like, I was aware of the Clone Saga. I was aware of Ben Reilly. I was aware of that. I wasn't reading it, and I knew that opinion was divided amongst comic book readers. There's no internet yet, but at the comic shop, I heard divided opinions, and I heard opinions from people that wanted Peter, hated it, but we're still buying the book every month anyway. So, do you ever think you'll go back to Marvel and actually write Peter Parker? You have Peter Parker stories you want to tell?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't know that I'd ever go back. I just know that it's weird. Yes, I did Spider-Man, wrote and drew Sensational Spider-Man, but yes, to a certain degree, I don't feel like I did real Spider-Man just because it was Ben Reilly. At the same time, when we were doing it, Marvel even then really wanted to, I think, get away from the Peter Parker, Mary Jane Watson marriage and to have Peter Parker be young and single again, to have Spider-Man be young and single. So the plan at the time was to transition over to Ben Reilly and eventually have him just become Spider-Man and be Peter Parker. Those plans all changed and they didn't want to do that. So everything got a little more convoluted than it had to be. But at the same time, when I was doing the book, I know I tried to tell Spider-Man stories that had what I felt would be a true sort of Spider-Man vibe to them. That just as there are things that I think are intrinsic to a good, strong Superman story, I think Spider-Man has attributes in his stories and points that are very important for a good, solid Spider-Man story. And I tried to bring that to the project. And I certainly enjoyed writing and drawing the adventures of Spider-Man at that time. Even though it was Ben Reilly, it was still a lot of fun. I mean, writing and drawing Spider-Man, it's bleeping Spider-Man. I mean, who doesn't enjoy that?
Good times.
Yeah.
And your Thor run, I feel is underappreciated. I mean, I was reading it as it was coming out. I think I was probably in college then. So, I had student loan money to spend on comics. But I was
Good you.
Yeah. I remember really enjoying that and you breaking total new ground with the character. A character that's been around for decades and decades and decades. And I just kind of feel like it's been somewhat forgotten by fans. And when we had cons, did you have fans come up and talk to you about your Thor run? Is it something that's still, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you spend that much time with a particular character and have such great art like we did, where it was, John Romita Jr. first, then it was Andy Kubert, then Stuart Immonen and so many more. But once you are on a book that long, and especially one that kind of told a complete story like we did throughout that number of years, there are always going to be people who remember it and come to see you at con and say, I love this when it came out. Can you sign these for me, please? And that kind of thing. So yeah, it's still in the consciousness. That might be fading every day as we all age and we forget things, but it's still out there.
Cool. Yeah. Dude I talked to was like, I didn't know that. I remember Simon's. I was like, no, it was way after that. Come on. And it's like, no, it wasn't the 90s. Like, the only thing I really remember Thor in the 90s is fighting Juggernaut and the New Warriors. But then I think I didn't really read much Thor at all until I saw your name coming on it. I was like, oh, cool. Is that guy from Booster Gold?
That was 98 that I started. So it was roughly 98 to 2004, 5, right in that time frame. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So getting back to some Booster Gold questions. What is the weirdest commission you've been asked to draw with Booster Gold? And are there some that you would reject drawing? If someone asks you, not for myself, asking for a friend, is there is there anything that stands out as something really weird that you were asked to draw with Booster?
With Booster, no. You know, I know that probably, and with Booster, it doesn't get too off the wall because people don't, you know, if he's a character that they're really invested in, I don't know that they want weird. I know one was once, it was Booster Gold either eating a cupcake or maybe it was a slice of pizza. And I just wrote a word balloon that said, you know, even superheroes get hungry, you know, stuff like that. So that with Booster, it never got too far out there.
Cool. So, I just, man, there's been so many weird things people have asked for, Deadpool artists to draw with Deadpool because that character goes all over the place. Well, just wondering if there's anything with Booster.
Yeah, especially after the movies.
Oh yeah. So so you created this character Booster, and he's had, I would say you wrote more than anyone else on the character solo, at least. I mean, you had a great run in the second volume from I think 16 to the end,
right
thereabouts, and what advice would you give Booster Gold as his creator, as like, what would you think Booster Gold obviously is flawed, obviously, but what do you think he really needs? What advice would you give him if Booster came to you and say you really were his father, you created him? Stuff's not working out too well for me, Dad. What advice would you give me? Like, what advice would you give Booster Gold as his creator?
You know, the advice would be, it's okay to do the endorsements, make a good product. No more, you know, I think I implied once that he had done a promotional campaign for Depends or something like that. Adult diapers. Stay away from the bad stuff. Keep it clean. Try and find a way to get along with Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. That's the big one.
Absolutely.
If you have them on your side, you're going to be fine. Make sure you're always in the Justice League, because if you're in the Justice League, you can raise what you charge for endorsing products. You can raise more money because you can say not just Booster Gold, you say Booster Gold of the Justice League. So, and there's a way to do it, and make yourself the fan favorite of superheroes. You know, because this idea that people are automatically going to latch on to Batman or Green Lantern or something else, or Green Arrow, I don't know that would be. If you're out there and open and make fun of make fun of it all, and you know, make yourself the fan favorite for superheroes in the real world.
Wonderful. Yeah, I can see that. So, getting back to the real world and the last year, the pandemic, all that. One thing, this whole comic book experience basically is coming out of the Comic Book Shopping Network, which is kind of a third market. Like, you have the direct market stores, and then you have the market of Amazon, eBay, an online thing that's just, you know, a shopping cart, you click, whatnot. And then this is a third market where they're actually live selling. And yes, it's a lot like QVC, sure. And that was old school, but you know, some things are ideas that are ahead of their time. And now, is there anything that you, being a creator that's been in this since like the early 80s with Warlord and what was it, Sun Devils?
Yeah.
Is there any way that you've pivoted in this last year, or any way you plan to pivot with your output or your career? I know some creators have done Kickstarters for the first time that may or may not have ever done that. I know that we don't have cons for the foreseeable future. Is there any way that you've pivoted, or is there any pivots you've seen creators do that caught your interest?
It's interesting because I'm still wrestling with that. And part of it is because I think when this all first happened last March of 2020, when the first conventions were canceled, I don't know in that moment that I thought, okay, this is going to go on for a long time. I think a lot of us thought, okay, yeah, this might run into the summer, but by fall, maybe we'll kind of be doing okay again. And then as it went on and on, it became clear that this was going to be a new reality of sorts, and that we were going to have to adjust over the long haul. And so I'm just now toying with the concepts of how would I react that as I sit here in 2021 and all of a sudden, I don't know what the next convention is going to be of any consequence. I don't know when it's going to be. I don't know where it's going to be. So that does become a factor. And so I think whether it's going to be a third market like this one we're on right now, as you describe it, I think that's going to obviously become a prime part of things. I think from an artistic standpoint, one of the benefits is for artists, they can always, I have always had requests for commissions that I've never been able to do because I'm so busy. And now I'm able to fit just a couple in, things like that. And what I do is kind of say, okay, if there was going to be a 4-day period where I was at a convention, that's where I can sit down and take care of those sorts of things now. But I think we're all trying to figure this out, and not everybody has the same solution.
That's true. Do you have any creator-owned things in mind, or anything that you would want to self-publish or kickstart?
Yes, I do have a couple of things I've always wanted to do, and I think now we're getting to the point where it's getting to be time to do it. And then you wrestle with the question of what is the best way to do it? Is it to publish it as a comic book with a different publisher is sort of the floppy? Is it to go the Kickstarter route or something else? So those are things I'm certainly exploring right now, like so many people are.
Right. Yeah. Personally, I've backed a lot of Kickstarters over this pandemic, but on the retail level, as a comic book retailer, that they have. Okay. If it's a creator that I like, or it's a cool pitch, and there's a retail level, I'm like, you know what? Let's do this. Let's get all in.
And I think that is actually another very viable way for it to work out. If retailers get on board and say, there's this, here's a 80-page hardcover by, Joe Writer and Sam Artist, and we can have it on the shelf for several months and try and promote that with our customers, because, every retailer knows out of their customer base who likes what creator or who likes what character. And if they're really on top of it, then I think they try and say to their customers, here, just check this out. If you like this, you're going to like that, and that kind of thing. And I think the more that retailers can do that, actually, the more we build a really healthy industry.
Absolutely. Yeah. And with the internet and all that, I've had customers actually tell me, hey, did you see this Kickstarter by this creator? Here's the retail thing. I was going to back it. If you do the retail thing, I'll get one from you. And I'm like, oh, cool. I only have to sell 9 more then. Clickety click. And it's a nice fit so far. Like I really dig it. So good. Yeah, good stuff. As far as the DC questions, what is your take on the distribution stuff? Why is that something that has affected you at all, of DC changing distributors from Diamond to Lunar and the other guys, and then to Lunar, and it's a lot of volatility. Is that something that creators are feeling?
I only feel it in this sense when I walk into my local stores and they ask me about it and complain about it and say, I did not get my books this week. Or why are you doing this? What we had was working before just fine. So I certainly sympathize with everybody, because I don't know that it's the right solution. I don't know that it's the wrong solution because I'm not privy to those discussions. And, you know, at the end of the day, my job is to create story and make it as good a story as I possibly can, and then trust that we will have a network where the publisher takes the book, prints the book, distributes the book, and it gets into the retailer's hands and then into the customer's hands. And whatever facilitates that the best way, I'm all for it. And anything that gets in the way of that, I question.
Yeah, that's rational. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I get that there's a lot of change and volatility because of things happening in the world and all that. It just feels like it fuels rumors of, oh, what's going to happen next? Oh, are they going to stop publishing comics? They're going to do, you know, this, that, or the other. And, you know, being more knowledgeable about the industry and sales and digital sales versus print sales and all that, it's like, no, they're not going to stop doing this. I mean, come on. At the very, they could change the format.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't see them not producing new content of sequential art. Why? Why?
In print.
Yes.
In print. Yeah.
Yes. Why? Why not? You know, like that's insane. But that's why, you know, I'm anxious every time the solicits like, okay, so what's after Future State? You know, I used to be mainly anxious because I was, you know, speculating of what's going to happen. What does this description say? What does this say? You know, like who's appearing where? And now it's more like, oh crap, are these things going to be canceled? Are more stuff? What's going on with DC? It has me a little bit on edge, I guess, about the future. Having said that, the content that's coming out is awesome. It is awesome.
Good.
Like I have read everything for the past few months. I mean, obviously there's a lot more time to read. And I've enjoyed a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff DC's putting out that I think the base level DC book is, I enjoy it more than the base level Marvel book right now. Everything else is distribution and all that stuff is just, you know, it's like you said, it's not part of whether the creator and the fan, you know, the creator and the fan, we retailers facilitate getting the creations to the fans in the direct market, and certain things impede that and certain things help that. And I'm all about the fans. I'm all about fan service. And the biggest thing for a fan is to give them a book that's going to make them want to buy the next book. You know,
that's exactly right. And I think that part of what you're seeing right now in the DC stuff that's coming out is, I mean, I think you can feel a lot of passion on the pages. That if you look at the new slate of books, I think there's a sense of energy there that is very important, and that hopefully readers can pick up on that. And obviously, you know, we're very early in the game for things that are happening. It's you know, like January 17th today, we're just a couple of weeks into the Future State books, and then just setting up things that'll start to happen after that with the new line of or the new wave of books that come out in March. So I think it's a good time for everybody to take a deep breath and just be a little bit open-minded about what it is they're going to see and give it a chance.
Yeah. I mean, as long as you have a book coming out.
Right.
And you know, April, May, whenever, you know, like as long as you have a book coming out. So, yeah. And I did see that a lot of these backup stories, like quasi anthology type things, are continuing. I saw the Detective Comics with a Huntress backup story, like on the cover that, you know, solicited for, I don't know if it's April, probably April. And I was like, oh, cool. They're carrying that over. That is amazing. Awesome. So,
yeah. And I know when I was a kid, I liked books that had more than one story in them. And often there would be books that I would buy because I liked the backup character or backup story more so than necessarily the front story. And I think again, there is room for different concepts in terms of what a comic book can be, that it doesn't always have to be that 32-page floppy pamphlet, that we can expand that understanding and idea a little bit and come up with different products.
Awesome. And circling back to Death of Superman, that personally, I skipped school that day to go to the comic book store because I needed my copy. And, there was hype everywhere. I needed my copy. And I got caught skipping school because I was, I actually said a quote to the news that was out there. And then I was like, oh, when was this? And I was like, oh, I walk in and the comic shop guy, the guy Tom, he's like, oh, I pulled you a copy. I was like, yeah. He's like, you're going to get a copy. I pulled it. You didn't have to. I was like, yeah, but I want to read it now. I want to read it now. So I got it.
Look, there was such a vibe going on. There was so much energy and everybody talking about it. Nobody wanted to wait, right? I mean, everybody wanted to go get it that day. And that's why almost every store I know of had a line, going out the door. And people wanted to read it because there was so much in the news. You didn't want to be the kid who, went to school and found out 5 other kids at school had it before you and got to read it and you didn't, right? I mean, that would be awful. So, of course, he's cut school.
Right.
It's what Booster Gold would do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that had to have been career changing for you, right? I mean, you were basically solidly on Superman as long as you wanted from that point, basically.
And I had been on it for a couple of years prior to that. And obviously, it took us to a very different place. And, the market was very different at that time. Comics in general were very different at that time. For people who weren't there, it's hard to communicate now just what things were like and what the level of excitement was out there for that book. And then not just that, but then even, everybody talks about, Superman 75 and the death of Superman. And then after that, it was the reign of, or Funeral for a Friend, where we really addressed, well, what does it mean with Superman gone? How does that change the DC universe? And then after that, Reign of the Superman, where 4 different characters came back claiming to be Superman, reincarnated or brought back to life somehow. That was really a magical time to be a reader. And it's hard to communicate that now to people who weren't there. But it's funny, if you pick it up, look at it and read it, I think the material still holds together really incredibly well. And if you now can judge it from the perspective of a year-long storyline that unfolded across 4 different titles by 4 different creative teams, I think it's really an epic time in comics.
Oh, absolutely. Not only was it payoff and just the build and how it felt, the build of Doomsday coming and coming and coming, and then the payoff of just all splash pages in 75, just like, this is epic. And then afterwards you have essentially, for essentially a weekly book, and you have a plan and you execute that plan well. I mean, that was, I can't think of much of anything else that nailed it that well with all eyes on it. Having said all that, have you seen the animated adaptations of Death Again? And do you have any opinions on those?
It's funny because when the first one came out a number of years ago, I mean, the very first one, they didn't deal with the 4 different Superman or anything like that. It was much smaller, more self-contained. And then about 4 years ago now, they redid it as Death of Superman. And then shortly after that, Reign of the Superman came out as a Return of Superman to tell the bigger part of the story, which is the 4 characters claiming to be Superman, and so it was much more cohesive. It's been fun to see, and obviously, Batman versus Superman, Dawn of Justice touched on some of those things as well. So it's really been a lot of fun to see how these different mediums have tried to interpret it and sort of translate it and update it or change some of the characters in it and things like that. It's really been interesting to see, and I get quite a kick out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it as well. There was, you know, obviously they changed the Justice League, but you know, that's kind of mainstream fans want to see a Justice League they recognize, you know.
Right.
So,
right. No, and I realize that, and these things are necessary. Yes.
There was a couple cool character moments that I wanted your opinion on when Lois goes to the Kent's house to, I guess, console Ma Kent, and Martha is still trying to maintain that no, that's not my son, that, you know, Superman died, and Lois knew, right. And she just pretended not to know because either she was waiting for him to tell her or it benefited her to maintain the ruse. I don't know. What did you think about that? I mean, sure, she's an investigative journalist. Sure, it's within absolutely the realm of possibility that she could have known that he was, or suspected he was Clark, and then when Clark's missing the same time Superman is dead. I don't know. How did that strike you?
It's, you know, I understand why they did it. Obviously, the story was a little different for us, the way we wrote it and drew it. But I know that whenever we talked about these things in general, as we were sculpting these stories, one of the things we always said is, yeah, Lois, I mean, before we had Superman reveal to Lois that he was Clark Kent or vice versa, you know, we always sort of said, well, of course Lois knows. Lois is smart. Lois is on top of it. She knows, but she just doesn't say anything. So it's sort of a theory that we always had as a group of writers and artists anyway. So it kind of fits where we were just in terms of how we interpreted these characters.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. I thought I had a hunch maybe. It's nice to be able to ask the man himself, Dan Jurgens.
Well, now you know. Now you know.
Awesome, man. So, what? I guess you can't talk about what you have upcoming, whether it's a booster backup story in a Superman book or Action Comics or whatever. But is there something you're promoting other than, I guess, Generations Forged, or some way that people can support you that enjoy this interview and want to give you some support?
I appreciate that. No, and right now I think the biggest thing is, you know, hopefully you can still find Generations Shattered at your local retailer. And yes, very early in February, Generations Forged will come out. And as I said, that sets us up, I think, for some things going forward that are very strong. And so that I think is, as much as anything, what I want to talk about right now. And then, yes, beyond that, you can always follow me on Twitter. I'm at the Dan Jurgens on Twitter. You can find me elsewhere fairly easily. I'm around, and hopefully we'll get back to the point where we can actually chat in person at a convention again.
Yeah, I awkwardly stopped you at a San Diego Comic-Con, maybe the last one, maybe the one before last, but I was like, hey, I need to tell you how much I love your action. Your action's so good. Like, it's just so good. Like, I didn't know that I needed more Dan Jurgens Superman in my life, but I guess I do. You know, like, a second act on Superman.
It was a fun time. It came out twice a month, which, for the purposes of just looking at it as a writing exercise, allowed me to give you the story in a faster way. And I think fans really like that. I think, you know, twice a month release is a great solution.
Absolutely. So yeah, it just reminded me, cons, man. I need more cons so I can just tell these creators to their face how much I like their work. So anyway, thanks for doing this. It was a blast. You know, long live the Legion, and you were boosterific. Oh,
well, thank you very much. Always a pleasure to see you. The looking good, costume looks great. So
thank you.
Very good.
All right.
My pleasure.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
All right. So long. Goodbye.
That was one of the most wild things I think has ever been presented at a Comic-Con. Booster Gold getting to interview the creator, the man who gave him life, Dan Jurgens, big shout out to Aaron at a comic shop for doing that for us. Wow.